Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy, Nate Weitzer, as always on the East Coast. And we are looking at 10 games here, Nate, on Wednesday night. In this one, we're taking a look at the Nuggets and the Bucks taking each other on in Milwaukee. In that one, got a really good slate of games for you. Another good video with the Grizzlies and Warriors, as well as our player props. And we're bringing you these videos each and every weekday this season, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Also, head to thelines.com. You can check out everything we've got up there, written content and the like for the NBA this season. You can also use our odds finder tool on there. That's where we give you guys all the best odds available on all these bets you're making in the NBA this season. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into this slate and then talk Bucks and Nuggets.
Yeah, the Pacers pulled out a win without Halliburton last night, and they're +6 at Orlando. Another game we wanted to look at, but Embiid is questionable. The Sixers are -5 at home against the Nets that managed to win 2 straight on that at the end of that road trip. Now on extra rest is Brooklyn. Minnesota +2.5 at New Orleans, which just played a very low-scoring game against these Nuggets last night. Washington won a high-scoring game against Dallas. Shout out to Josh for having that one. -3 at Houston. The Nuggets are +8 at Milwaukee, and that total's been bet down to 231 as we speak. Hawks -2 at the Thunder. That Grizz game right now, Memphis +3.5. Total's been bet up 7 points to 245. The Raptors are +3 at the Kings with a 238 total. Jazz +3 at Portland, and then the Spurs are +5.5 at the Lakers. Slight rumblings that Anthony Davis might be back tonight out of nowhere, kind of. But we're looking at Nuggets Bucks. It's billed as a matchup of the last 4 MVP winners, and nothing so far to indicate that Jokic is going to miss it, even though he missed 2 games with hamstring issues, and they played last night. He's not a guy who usually, has to sit back-to-backs. It seems like he just kind of had an issue, wanted to sit it out for a game or two, and now he's right back to his thing, getting yet another triple-double and yet another clutch shot to beat New Orleans. I guess the fact that was really low scoring has caused some people to be betting on the under here early, but I would lean on over. I think the numbers really indicate over first and foremost because of Denver. I mean, on the road, already a bad defense, like 28th in opponents' effective field goal shooting and defensive efficiency. But back-to-back situations, they're bad on defense wherever they are. They're 5-1 to the over, going over by an average of 11 per game. They're giving up 120. They're scoring 122. Giving up and hitting about 14 threes, giving up and diming out 29 times, giving up and getting 27 free throws. Those are all high marks when it's a back-to-back. So there's not the same energy in rotations defensively. But, I mean, their offense doesn't take nights off when Jokic is out there, right? You look at the recent trips to Milwaukee, it's been an absolute anomaly of just beatdowns, 3 straight beatdowns of the Bucks in Milwaukee. That's good for a +26.5 net rating in those games. Milwaukee scoring just 104 with a 131 defensive rating. Jokic his typical 135 offensive rating in those 3 games. So even with Brook Lopez active, and I think 2 of those 3, they had no answers. Nobody has any answers for Jokic. The Bucks defense has adjusted a little bit in terms of not just giving up a rampant amount of threes this year, right? They're towards the top of the game in most things, including field goal percentage, limiting free throws. Denver doesn't really care about free throws. They are struggling to deny offensive rebounds. Denver is doing a good job with that, and they are forcing the fewest turnovers in the league somehow. So despite limiting assists overall, their assist to turnover ratio is bad. And they do give up a ton of mid-range shots, which is why I think Joker has been able to operate really well in those areas with them. Jamal Murray might not be able to play on a back-to-back, but if he is, that's another mid-range weapon for them. So in any case, I just don't expect the Nuggets offense to lapse here. Even if Murray is out, maybe MPJ, Bones Highland were both out last night, and that did hurt them. But I think they'll still be able to produce around Joker in this matchup. And you look at Milwaukee's offense, which just exploded with Giannis back after the knee injury. Granted, it's against Detroit, but without Giannis, they were lighting teams up. So now in their last 4, they have a 127 offensive rating. Drew Holiday finally looking like he can carry a major load, and he will continue to be number 2, right? Middleton played 15 minutes in his return last night, but he's not a full go yet. So between Milwaukee scoring 122 at home their last 10 and Denver's back-to-back splits, I feel like we're going over 230 here. If it's bet down to that range, I think you can take the over. And I think we both like Denver to cover 8 for sure if Jokic is in.
Isn't that the caveat for everything we're saying though? Like, should we really harp on that point? Because I just, Milwaukee's 8 point, it's like you said, it's went up half a point in favor of Milwaukee since we even started, recording this podcast this morning, and 8 points for the Bucks without, or 8 points for the Nuggets to cover with Jokic is obvious. The same way that taking them at a -1 spread last night when we thought he was going to play was obvious, and then he did play, and they actually only won by 1 against the Pellies and sort of folded at the end. But I also didn't like how they folded at the end as they're now moving on to Milwaukee and a team that I think with Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, you'll see them able to finish games, which they haven't been that bad necessarily down the stretch of games, but the ones that they haven't been in have been just because of a lack of having their guys there. So I lean over as well if Jokic is in, and that's it. If he's in 232, fine. I'm happy with the over despite Milwaukee's defense, which to be honest, like it's been really, really good for the most part, but I feel like it's been a fluctuating sort of group of guys that we see in there to the point where we just don't really know. I feel like the last few weeks for the Bucks have been such a conundrum. Now there's stability, and I think that's why you instead of looking at what they've done in recent history at all, it's really just important to look at what they've done when they have a healthy Chris Middleton out there with Giannis and Drew, and really if Jokic isn't in there, what they do without him, which is obviously score a lot fewer points, get a lot fewer assists per game. About 5 or 6 less points per game. They get about 5 or 6 less rebounds per game. So, just everything he does. If you're going to get average like a 25 point, 30 point triple double, basically, you're going to be, a lot of those stats are going to be hard to make up. And then I don't know if they come along for the ride with that Milwaukee offense that I think is going to pummel this team. And I think this defense rather on the road, as you've been talking about, which does allow their opponents to do a lot more on defense. You went through a lot of those stats I don't even necessarily need to get into, but it's just another case of home road splits. 18-5 at home for the Bucks, 22-4 at home for the Nuggets. But then you look at the road stats. 12-10 for the Nuggets, still good enough to beat the teams that they should be beating for the most part this season. And they have missed Jokic, I believe, twice on the road this season. So there's 2 points, 2 games right there they kind of threw away. But the offense as well, that's what I'd be worried about coming along. They give up about 116 on the road, but they only score the 114 versus the 120 they score at home, right? And that's really what I'm looking at here, and why I think some of these trends continue to be what they are, and as a home favorite this year, Milwaukee has been covering and sort of going back to their Milwaukee ways that we like to see. It's 16-7 against the spread, specifically when they're the home favorite, and covering that spread by about a point, but that's still an average margin of victory of about 7. So that's about what this is at in this game. And I still think if Joker's not in, I'm not taking Milwaukee in any way, shape, or form unless I knew Joker was out, and still 8 points feels like a lot. So hitting 8 points, to be honest, before you really even know what's happening with Joker is trying to get ahead of it. It probably will rise if he's officially ruled out, as some people might try to go hit it. And then you can, even get it maybe at closer to 9. But even if he's not there, the possibility of them hanging around to cover 9 isn't out of the question by any means. And that's why I still think it's worth it to hit it now.
I'll take Milwaukee to score 120. I think you're right on there to say they're gonna destroy this defense. It's just a question of, will Denver have enough legs if Bones and MPJ are still out? Do they have enough firepower to keep pace on the road? But for Milwaukee, this is a big revenge spot, because I mentioned those last 3 times, just embarrassing losses. The last one, I believe, sparked their kind of run to the championship, or at least one of those did. The last one, I think last season, sparked a run to the conference semis or whatever it was. But each time it's kind of been like a gut check for them. And I think I'll talk about Giannis in particular. His prop's still only at 30 points, even though he cruised to a point per minute against Detroit. I think he leads the charge here. I wouldn't be surprised if they score like 138 tonight. And it's just a question of whether Denver and Jokic is in to keep pace in some way, shape, or form. So I think a team total here is good. But yeah, you're totally right that this is all a caveat. If the Joker sits, Denver's pretty much tossing this game away with already two guys out. Maybe Murray sits as well. You never know, but I mean, it is a high-profile matchup that I think they will want to have their guys for.
Yeah, well, let's see. I mean, if they're serious about wanting this game and wanting not necessarily needing to ease Chris Middleton back into things, but just saying go out there, make it somewhat of a playoff atmosphere, and win this game, because we've only seen Chris Middleton against the Pistons in the last like 3 weeks or whatever, or longer. Then yeah, I think that the Bucks really make sure that they're coming together and winning this game. I think either way, yeah, the points for the Bucks, and then you wait to see if Joker's in or not, if they can really handle this spread. But you really got to be monitoring his status to go ahead and hit those lines pretty quickly. As we know, the books are probably staying on that just as much as we are with the way that Joker impacts games. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. Check out the other videos we have up for you today as well. And until we see you next, happy betting.